Welcome to the Explainer. All right, let's dive straight into one of the most consequential debates of our time. What on earth do we do about artificial intelligence? Because right now, it's a landscape of super high-stakes conflict, a lot of confusion, and a future that's literally being written in real time.
On one side of this whole debate, you have this stark, pretty chilling warning. And look, this isn't from some outsider looking in. This is coming from researchers at the very heart of the field who are arguing that the path we are on right now, well, it leads to catastrophe.
And then, on the complete other side, you've got this powerful call from global leaders to accelerate, to innovate faster, to push harder, and to secure national dominance in a technology they see as absolutely fundamental to prosperity and power.
So who's right? Do we hit the brakes or do we slam on the accelerator? In this explainer, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We'll deconstruct this conflict, we'll map out the complex territory, and then we're going to arm you with a new toolkit to see the hidden forces that are shaping our AI future.
Okay, let's dive into the argument for stopping. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't coming from Luddites or anything like that. It's coming from the very researchers who are deeply, deeply concerned about the superintelligence we're all racing to build. So according to the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, or MIRI, this race presents 4 potential paths to total catastrophe. They say the default outcome, just by doing what we're doing, is a loss of control, where superintelligent AI simply disempowers all of humanity. But even short of that, we're looking at catastrophic misuse, the risk of AI-fueled wars, or even the rise of a permanent global authoritarian state.
So, what's their solution? Well, it's a 2-part plan. First, build what they call an off switch. That's the global infrastructure needed to actually stop dangerous AI development if we have to. And second, be prepared to use that switch to enact a globally coordinated halt on the most powerful systems until they can be proven to be safe.
But while some are calling for a halt, the reality on the ground, it looks very, very different. Because right now, the world isn't braking. It's flooring the accelerator.
And this timeline shows that shift just perfectly. I mean, what began back in 2023 as a global conversation about safety and existential risk has, by 2025, completely pivoted. The official language is no longer about caution. It's all about innovation, prosperity, and winning. So here's the crucial point. Governments have shifted from talking about putting up guardrails to talking about winning a race. The focus is squarely on deregulation and investment, and safety concerns, well, they're now often framed as a barrier to national leadership. This whole situation leaves us with a really fragmented and, frankly, confusing landscape. You've got one group warning about extinction, while another is in a full-blown race for dominance. To make any sense of it all, we really need a map.
And thankfully, we can borrow a brilliant framework that was actually first developed to understand the internet. It gives us a way to pinpoint where different companies, policies, and regulations actually operate in this unbelievably complex ecosystem. It's called the 3-layer framework, and it's a beautifully simple way to cut through all the complexity and see how the entire AI world actually fits together. So at the very bottom, you have the infrastructure layer. That's the physical stuff, the chips, the servers, the data centers. In the middle, you've got the logical layer. This is the brains of the operation, the big foundation models from places like OpenAI or Google. And then at the top is the social layer. And this is where AI touches our lives through all the apps and tools we use every single day.
So now we have our map. That's great. But a map only shows us where things are. To really understand why things are happening, we need something like a magnifying glass to see the motivations of the people and organizations building this technology.
A concept from organizational studies called institutional logics gives us that lens. The best way to think of it is as a way of seeing the invisible belief systems, the unquestioned assumptions, that drive what an organization even considers a rational or appropriate thing to do. In other words, the choices made when building and aligning an AI are never neutral. Whether an AI is optimized for shareholder value, or for national security, or for community well-being, that depends entirely on the institutional logic of its creators. Now, check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. This slide connects each of those logics to specific real-world harms. So for example, a company driven purely by a market logic can create the structural risk of market failure, which might show up as something like labor insecurity. An AI guided by a state logic creates a risk of mass surveillance, which leads directly to things like privacy violations. It connects the why to the what. So let's bring all this together. Instead of just feeling lost in a chaotic debate,
You now have a really powerful way to analyze what's actually happening underneath all the headlines.
You have the map. That's the three-layer framework to see where a new policy or a new product fits, whether it's at the chip level, the model level, or the app level. And you have the magnifying glass, institutional logics, to help you understand why its creators made the choices they did.
And this really illustrates the key takeaway, doesn't it? The next time you see a headline about AI, you can look past the noise. You can ask yourself, okay, which layer is this operating on, and what logic is driving it? And just by answering those two questions, you can start to see the hidden rules that are shaping all of our futures.